Hey guys, this is The Argument with Toddie1skip, and this is argument episode number 8. And this one really dives deep into the Gypsy Rose Blanchard conversation, where my friend Phil and I have a horrible argument, which is why this is called The Argument. So here we are arguing clearly about what's going on with Gypsy Rose Blanchard. It should be very interesting. I would think you guys would enjoy it. I hope you do.
So like we were just talking and I found myself having an emotional reaction. I was a foster kid. All right. And I look back at my past. I have dental issues.
Right?
And I experienced something, and even to the point of getting emotional when I read about having this child have her teeth removed as a part of this person's sickness. So I had compassion for the child. Whatever she's become now, I can't quite account for, as with anything. I could only imagine she probably has her mother's sickness, and she might have it to a much more sophisticated and exponentially dangerous degree because she was involved with matricide. And certainly she needs to be watched. And certainly, in my opinion, the state of Missouri, they fucked up. Not only did they not take the kid, should have been reconsidered when he was given the plea, the same plea that she got for 10 years, go to John. He did not. He rejected that plea because he thought there was a greater value in how noble he was. That was a sign of his mental illness. And the state of Missouri didn't see that. They don't respect that. And that kid does need a second look-see, but his appeal apparently hasn't gone anywhere since December of 2023 or something like that. And that's kind
Well,
of
so I'd love to have a conversation about that. That's something totally different that also got me in trouble. Nick, we tried to get an appeal for Nick. He was actually up for an appeal, and I spoke to his public defender a few times, and we were asked to get letters that would be in his benefit for the judge for an appeal. So me and a few other content creators reached out to our subscribers and said, listen, like I said, I spoke to the lawyer. I said, hey, if I could get people to write the letters and I print them out and I mail them in one packet, would that be okay? And he said, yeah, absolutely. That would be fine. So, people don't have time to go to the post office. People very rarely have stamps anymore because everything's online. So I said, anybody that has anything to help in this. And man, I sent out three batches of letters. I've been in touch with Nick Godejohn. I have written to Nick Godejohn. He is somebody that is easily manipulated. And it's my opinion, so much so that I reached out to the warden, the chaplain, and there was somebody else because Nick is still being manipulated, in my opinion, and as well as many people's opinions to this day while he's incarcerated. There is a group that has tried to, and I called them out on it, has tried to get Nick's commissary money to go through a GoFundMe. And I said, well, wait, let's stop there. I said, why is Nick paying for his commissary money? All you have to do is send it to his commissary. Why is it going through this other? Who's behind this organization? You can't get who's behind the organization. Gypsy has still made horrible comments about Nick. I believe Gypsy's behind the organization as well as somebody else who I'm not going to mention, but they know that I believe that wholeheartedly.
have any other evidence of that?
So wait a minute. So no, this is the stuff that I sent into to the warden, and the stuff that I sent in. There's a whole investigation going on that has to do with so much stuff. And it wasn't that long ago. I want to say it was, I don't know, about a month ago or something, a little over a month ago, when I was asked to send something else in that I had to look for. But anyway, there's stuff going on. But Nick is being manipulated. Again, I've written to Nick and I've introduced myself, and I asked him, and I explained this to him. I explained his mother is no longer of this earth. His dad appears online, but in all honesty, his dad doesn't seem to fight for him that I see. In all fairness, not that I see. Okay, so, but his dad, from my understanding, struggles as well. Okay, with autism. That's from I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what. But nobody seems to actively be fighting for Nick except for this group called NPG Cornerstone.
So
Nick
his
was,
mother passed?
yeah, his mother actually OD'd. She and it was after, it was like a year after when Nick got life. Yeah. So anyway, so he
Sorry to know that.
yeah. So Gypsy just said that that was karma, because of what he did to her mom. Even though, if you know anything about the case, she took her 2 years to talk him into doing that, manipulated him in ways you wouldn't believe, but we'll talk about that. I wrote to Nick, like I was saying, and I said to him, I explained I worked in a jail, and I explained about how people sometimes they like that routine. It made them feel safe, and that I I knew one inmate in particular that when they got out, they went across the street, threw a brick through the window to come back in because they were institutionalized, and they were something in the jail more than what they were on the outside. That's what happened. So I explained that to
Was
him, and
you?
I explained that to him, and I said, I don't mean any offense by this, but do you want to get out? And of course, I got this letter that I don't think he wrote. Uh, but it was very more or less insulting. His letters were always just very short and to the point, um, and I wasn't trying to build a relationship with him, but he didn't seem to appreciate anything that I was trying to do for him. And it seemed like somebody else had his ear, because I know, because these people would say they knew that I wrote to him like that. You know what I mean? Like they knew, and I didn't have a problem with that. But he told them. I didn't tell them. I didn't announce that I wrote to Nick until it came out. And then I was like, yeah, I wrote to him. And yeah, he wrote back to me. And I asked him, did he want to stay there or not? Because why wasn't he fighting? More or less, why aren't you fighting if you don't want to be there? And he was in this pities for parole program. Who knows? Maybe his life was better there. It's not for me to determine. That's why I asked. Because I figured if I'm going to do any kind of work for him, at least I want to know if he wants to get out. That's fair, right? Why am I going to work for somebody that doesn't want to get out? He's been in there for a pretty long time. He's autistic. He's got a routine, a schedule. He knows everybody, I would think, at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do I know that his life isn't better for him in there? I don't want to make that decision. So anyway, yeah. Uh, she took advantage of him. She told several lies to him about how a feeding tube was put in her, and it aborted the baby that they had. They weren't pregnant. She told him that she was kept in a wheelchair. She wasn't. Phil, she was not kept in a wheelchair except for when she put herself in the wheelchair. And what else? There was another story that she was chained to her mom's bed. She wasn't chained to her mom's bed. The Munchausen by proxy, just so you know, can only be a diagnosis when somebody's alive. When Gypsy was in the interrogation room right after the arrest, never once did she say anything about any kind of abuse with her mom.
I
Never
saw
once.
that she denied it initially. She was flirting around it, and
Yeah, so
well, it took a while for her to admit what she admitted about and giving into her guilt, that she had a part in it or whatever, that she admitted
or
to words.
or and this is what happened. Her lawyer and that team found this to be something that could get her off.
She definitely had a better team of lawyers, didn't she?
She certainly had a better team of lawyers. And, you know, the whole Munchausen by proxy, I don't believe, and there's a lot of people that don't believe that Dee Dee, her mother, had Munchausen by proxy. So that's why I smiled. I was like, oh my God. With
Well,
everything you read about,
clearly the mother's history, the medical history, the fact that she was able to convince so many doctors. There's a record of how many times she interfaced with doctors, and they turned it into a TV series, if I'm not mistaken, The Act, starring Patricia Arquette and Joey
yeah, but
King.
that was a
Rather
drama.
intense, if
Yeah,
I
but
remember.
that
Well, it was
wasn't.
based on medical evidence. It certainly was fictitious, but they did take that.
No, but it
Right.
wasn't. But no, like it wasn't, because now, okay, the FOIAs have come out and the medical records are part of that. And we only have like about 200, 400 pages of those medical records. There's over 1,000 pages of those medical records
Right, but
and
this child
things,
wasn't taking itself to the doctor. It was being manipulated. It was
because
being
Gypsy has a chromosome deficiency. You know
but it
that.
was being directed by the mother that was doing.
But Gypsy was sick, you know that, legitimately sick. She has a micro deletion of a chromosome that was only diagnosed 3 years, 4 years before she unalived her mom. So the symptoms Gypsy had were legitimate symptoms. They just could not find, and especially when you're younger, you know how symptoms are more pronounced. You have allergies when you're younger, but you can often grow out of stuff. So Gypsy having her salivary glands was because they did tests. She was in the hospital for a month where they had swallow tests, and she could have choked on her own saliva. So that's why that was taken. And then her eye, she had, you can look it up. I forget what it's
You
called.
would agree that there was some kind of abuse on this child.
No,
That
the
there
only
was
thing
some
that
level
no,
of parental interaction that was greater than what be best practice. There was something that was going on that was creating this child. That there was a twist in the mother, the family that talked about her as well. In the one documentary, talked about her having issues, and she had legal problems, and the girl was known to be somewhat of a manipulator back in the day. And
okay, so but that's only one side of the story, and those people
nonetheless,
that,
it's part of it factors in as far as what
but
this
there's
person
no
was.
fact, behind it, to be honest. Now, we know this because, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, the sisters have finally like stood up and said that a lot of that stuff was untrue and strictly for a drama. Like, a lot of that stuff was untrue and for the drama. The problem that,
Actual interview with the parents and the husband and the actual people talking, they were doing that for fictitious
well,
purposes.
the stepmom might have some issues, but the dad, I've heard, and from reliable sources, to the contrary of how he felt about Dee Dee, his daughter. First of all, she was the youngest. She was the youngest of all of the kids. And so she got things that they didn't get. She got to go to college. They said that. She got a car, the only one that got it. So there was definitely, and I don't know why, maybe the family was in better financial, situation when Dee Dee was born, but they definitely have said that they got things that she didn't get. And I think that that plays a big part in this. Listen, I don't think Dee Dee was a saint, her mom. I don't think she was a saint at all. But I think that when her mom died, when Dee Dee's mom died, that all of the resentment and all of the bullshit that people were holding back, that the mother was basically protecting her daughter from, there was nobody there to protect Dee Dee from. So I think she felt very much out, and she was a single woman. trying to raise a sick child. You can't have Munchausen by proxy and have a genetic disorder that hasn't been diagnosed, and you're trying to figure out what it is. Like, was there a grift and was there malingering? Yes, absolutely so. But I think that at some point, pretty early on, Gypsy was part of that, because the weapon that was used to unalive.
How early on do you think?
So Gypsy has said, this is where the problem is. Gypsy has said things so many times that in so many different ways that this is the thing. So at one point, Gypsy said that a surgeon, that she was having a procedure done. I think it was a muscle biopsy, because her legs would get tired, she said. And she was having some sort of procedure done. And according to Gypsy's own words, the surgeon said to her, hey, or the whatever said to her, during the procedure, you had some sort of seizure, and something about the feelings in her legs, and where Gypsy had lost the feelings in her legs. But he felt that it would be temporary, and just let them know when she got it back. So Gypsy herself said, I didn't tell my mom when I got the feeling back in my legs until
What
a
age was
long
that?
I don't remember. I want to say 12. I don't remember. But and then Gypsy
Until she was 18, I'm going to credit to the mother. And honestly, that is this. The toughest thing in the world is to do victim blaming. I understand it's the dangerous waters to tread, but understanding the fact in this matricide that there's a dynamic that this child was raised in a reflective way by a kind of deviant quality, and as a result, what was it, till she was 23 when they committed the murder? So she lived well past the age of consent, and having given up her power of attorney or some other legal jargon, and as a result, she ends up with this horrible hate manipulation skill, and that turns into to murder, death, kill. I mean, she definitely is more responsible than the state of Missouri has given credit. She had a team of lawyers, in my opinion, that should have done better and should be doing better by her aftercare as far as that is concerned. Whatever parole or
so let me tell you that
see that they should be looking at for the rest of this girl's life. To be honest, if she's involved with a murder, and that really 10 years is a pass to a 20-year-old.
yeah, so let me tell you that also. I don't know how much you know of this, but Gypsy was messing with a man who was 50 years old that her mother found out about. And, Gypsy's biggest complaint about her mom was that her mom was too protective. Out of Gypsy's own mouth, all she ever had to do was exist. Her mother did everything for her. That's not any kind of abuse that I know of. I mean, unfortunately, it's caused self-entitlement. That's exactly what I think it's caused. But I think, and a lot of people think, but I'm going to stick to me, and proof is out there, that there was malingering, there was a grift, but it was at both parts. Gypsy's the one that stole the knife to unalive her mom. That was Dee Dee didn't help do that, in my opinion. She stole that. Now, was she taught how to steal by her mom?
Clearly,
Wait a
this
minute,
she
wait a minute,
planned
wait.
murder,
Was she
right?
taught how to steal by her mom? Maybe. But here's a woman with a sick child, legitimately sick. I need to tell you, Phil, legitimately sick, having the symptoms of everything, including now false symptoms that Gypsy's laying on as well. So here's a mom, a single mom, who came from Louisiana during Hurricane Katrina, and the dad, who's now in the picture, supposedly went looking just for their life insurance policy, thinking that they never made it out of Louisiana. Now, they made it out of Louisiana on a life flight, from my understanding, because they thought Gypsy had cancer. Was that a way to get your kid out of Louisiana? I'm not even mad if that happened. But here's the truth. They only found out about the micro deletion 3 to 4 years before the murder took place. And wait, it gets better. And then only found out which chromosome had it about a year before the murder takes place. So this whole time, she's trying to figure out what's wrong with her daughter. That's not Munchausen by proxy. Munchausen by proxy is making your child sick or making the lesser person sick, the person you're caring for sick, not trying to find out what it is that's making them sick. And yes, the grift is, well, by the time she's 18 years, this is what I'm thinking. By the time she's 18 years old, we might not know what the fuck the problem is. In the meantime, they're going to Disney things. Not with Dee Dee. Dee Dee liked rock concerts. Gypsy was the Disney fanatic. Gypsy was the Lord of the Rings person. She had rubbing elbows with the Lord of the Rings cast, going to trips for Disney, Make-A-Wish Foundation and all that. So these things, as far as her like teeth being pulled out of her mouth, her teeth were pulled out of her mouth, one, because they were rotting out of her head. Even her baby teeth were rotting out of her head. Gypsy stuck that, she was like bottle fed, like, and she was the one, she was still sucking on a bottle at 23 years old. I think she took a bottle to Nick's house, no lie. Okay. So, and there were things that and this showed up in her records as well when the FOIAs came out, and not all of them have come out, that her swallowing was an issue and a problem. That's why she was having problems with her teeth as well, as she wasn't eating right. There was food legitimately coming in through the feeding tube. She weighed like this ridiculous amount of weight at that age. And then when she had the feeding tube inserted, she started gaining weight. So all this stuff that she claimed, that she didn't even claim, the lawyer gave her as an alibi, she just ate up because she was legitimately sick. And that's come out. You can look up these micro deletions. So the micro deletion she has, those twins, I'll show you a picture. There's a famous group of twins, and you'll know exactly who they are because deletion.
I don't know, the medical case. So procedures that were somehow performed on this child were done in a medical way that were largely based on symptoms related by the mother. So in defense of whatever manipulation was going on there to this child, because she was still a child until the age 18, there were things that were performed on her that were done but without her consent.
Well, they'd have to be done without her consent if she was too young to have consent, but it doesn't mean.
But you're saying it was because of the best interest of the mother for this child that these procedures were done, like her having a feeding tube.
She would have been blind if they didn't fix her eyes. That's proven. She weighed. They don't just stick a feeding tube in you if you're not malnourished. If you're there's no doctor that's just going to stick a feeding tube in you.
I know, but what if malnourishment was part of this, overall condition that would have been diagnosed Munchausen if she had survived, because she was manipulating her daughter's weight, her daughter's reality, so that when she went to the doctor could see the symptoms that she was directed to see. And the doctor would form procedures based on.
She was in the hospital for over a month by herself. I mean, Dee Dee didn't stay in the hospital the whole time.
Right, so but you're saying hospital like you're referring to some city urban center. She was in these somewhat rural environments where people didn't have the time necessarily to test, and procedures were done on this child that were based on the mother's diagnosis. As a result, she had a host of medicines that she was then giving this child. Again, I'm seeing it as a child.
The mother doesn't diagnose. The doctors diagnose. That's number one.
Well, you're saying it's a mother's best interest,
the mother doesn't diagnose. You said it. You said the mother's diagnosis. The mother doesn't diagnose, the doctors diagnose. So the mother
didn't pre-diagnose. She wasn't
the
early
the mother didn't say my daughter has cancer. The mother said the symptoms that the daughter had, which the daughter legitimately had. Legitimately had.
Right, but they didn't find the deleted gene. She had symptoms, but they didn't find the deleted gene until 4 or 5 years before the murder. Ultimately, the mother had been steering her to some kind of research project for most of her youth.
No, why can't
I'm just saying that there's the result of this behavior.
There isn't a behavior. There's an absolute.
The behavior is matricide.
There's an absolute illness that Gypsy could have choked to death on her saliva, so that had to be done. She would be blind today with what was wrong with her eye. This is stuff that's proven. Gypsy still has a cross-eyed, but what would have happened was both eyes would have ended up being crossed. She would be blind today.
So along the way, the mother did good. That's a beautiful thing. I love hearing that.
But there were other things wrong with Gypsy.
Us against the world thing between the two of them. When you say there was an unholy partnership between the two of them, they were PIPs.
What I'm saying is the only thing that I found, and the only thing that has come up now that the FOIAs have come out, is there was a manipulation of the age of Gypsy. That I totally think was to continue on with the treatment until at least she was found out about what was wrong. And I think that's what was happening. It was coming to an end at that. Like she was supposedly just 19 at that point. So now she's starting, wait a minute. So now she's starting to lose benefits. There's no more Make-A-Wish after a certain point and this and that. Now it's going to go to children. So now she's starting to lose benefits and now things are starting to turn serious. You can't make her go back anymore in her age. Okay. So she's finally diagnosed, but she's diagnosed as an adult. Now, I'm not saying what was right. That's the crime.
But she didn't nurture an adult.
Gypsy being sick was Gypsy being legitimately sick. So much so that she doesn't want to have another child because she doesn't want her other child to possibly have this micro deletion. Now,
that's a beautiful thing. Ultimately.
I want to show you. And if you look up the micro deletion, you'll see a lot of the symptoms, but they're not looking for a micro deletion. They're looking for something even more popular. So they do look to see if it's cancer. They do want to know if it's cancer. Maybe some of the symptoms mimic cancer. There's so many things that this thing mimicked, especially as a child, because it's more pronounced. And then you add on the fact that Gypsy's also telling untruths about her legs and how she can move. And even in the swallow studies, how
but it doesn't necessarily defend the mother's behavior, that there was an actual symptom that resulted in a true disease, this microdeletion. As her behaviors towards her daughter are clear cut, there are manipulation. If it happened in any other family, that child would have reason to stand against the mother in open court and either seek emancipation or some other form of independence and make charges against the parent that was, after the age of 18 especially, somehow holding her power of attorney or whatever the legal consequence that she had arranged.
Wasn't holding anything. Gypsy was running around on the street.
They were true partners in crime.
Without a wheelchair.
Without a doubt, they were true partners in crime. They were definitely involved in an underhanded thing. Their whole history to their neighbors seemingly was sub rosa, right? Their neighbors were surprised the first time she saw her on TV was walking in a courtroom or some other thing.
But except there were plenty of neighbors that saw her walking around because she would go to neighbor's house to go to the boyfriend's house. And just so you know, Gypsy succeeded in unaliving her mom finally.
Yeah, without a doubt, this girl is twisted.
The first time She took what she thought was a real GUN, but it was a BB one, and she unloaded it on her mom. The other time there was a dagger. I don't know much about that one. And then it was finally Nick. And here's the thing. I think Gypsy did that. Here's what we found out about Gypsy, just so you know. Gypsy is more perverted than Gypsy is somebody, and I could say this confidently. She had sex in the room right next door to where her mom was unalived right after it.
Look, I don't want to kink shame anyone that kind of set that aside as far as that goes, because
Wait a minute, king
whatever
shame. No, no,
twist,
no,
whatever the
no,
twist this
no.
girl has, her whatever psychosis, schizophrenic break she has with reality is going to be sourced back to behaviors she got with the mother. I can only that my sensibility is that there is clearly blame to go anywheres, but there's blame to go everywheres rather. There's equal blame as far as how this girl was raised and what she has become in the household of this woman who was you know what, she's a victim of a horrible crime without a doubt. To be unalived by your child and or her manipulations, you know, in such a brutal fashion is, you know, that's untenable. I certainly have nothing but compassion for the woman and her family, and her attempt to love her daughter. If her best interest was to always help her daughter, so let it be her memory that that's her best interest. You know, and they
Gypsy has
will
destroyed
see
the
the
Gypsy. No,
good of the
Gypsy
bad.
keeps. Here's the
But
problem.
there's a defense to the fact that whatever this child is now has its roots in whatever the mother was towards this child.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that people could be born broken?
No, I think you were tabula rasa. I think we're a clean slate and we learn how to be broken. We learn it
Okay.
from the people
So you
around
don't
us.
think scientifically that somebody could be born with something missing that maybe you physically can't see, like a conscience? Because I mean,
Oh,
people are born without organs, and that's something you could physically see. But somebody,
without a doubt, it happens all the time. That's why we have
okay,
a
so when somebody is born
schizophrenia.
without, so when somebody is born, and I'm going to call them broken, okay? Because I think that I think that there is, unfortunately, I think that there's evil that comes into this world. I think that there are people that are born that are just born detached from any kind of feelings and any kind of conscience. And I think Gypsy Rose Blanchard is one of those people. I think, and I don't care what you don't want to kink shame when I don't think it's kink shame when you I don't think it's kink shame when you offer up your child when they're 13 years old to the father of the child to be RAPED. See, I think that goes right along with the lines of Gypsy unaliving her mom. I think that goes right along with having sex in a room where your mother's blood's all over the place, right next door to that. I think that just like rape by a man could be motivation, I think something like that could exist in a woman that we're just not really all that familiar with. And I don't think all of this could be blamed on a single woman trying to make it in a world with a sick child and a father that doesn't want to pay child support and only wants to look them up for a life insurance policy after they're gone. According to the dad, the mother said, Gypsy, this is a story, okay? According to the dad, the mother said, Gypsy was only going to live to be 18, 19, maybe 20 years old. And the dad didn't take it upon himself to spend as much time with the child that he said he thought wasn't going to be around. That's one story. There are so many different stories here that the lying doesn't make, in 1 minute, People are calling Dee Dee, Gypsy's mother, Aunt Dee Dee, and they love Dee Dee, only until that story changed after the unaliving. Okay. And even after the unaliving, you hear the dad on a prison call saying, it's too bad your mom just wouldn't let you date boys. Maybe this wouldn't have happened. Now, is that Munchausen by proxy, or is that somebody that wants dick? I'm just being honest. Like, how would you take that statement by Gypsy's dad?
I would see that as him identifying to his daughter that he recognizes his mother is her mother is controlling, and to the degree that she feels the need to escape, and that escape turned into murder, turned into
Okay,
her
so
unalive.
the men that
So the
Gypsy,
father is identifying, and maybe by to the degree that she might have or might not have had and or been influenced all those years by Munchausen diagnosis, maybe to whatever degree that was.
she
That's an
wasn't
extension.
diagnosed by
Wait,
Munchausen
wait a
until
second.
she
Wait, wait.
was
That's an
dead. You
extension.
can't
Well,
diagnose
wait a
somebody
second.
when they're
That's an
dead.
extension of the same controlling behavior that after the age of 18 resulted in her having a disconnect with boys and only being able to do stuff online and on her phone.
But
And
she
so,
wasn't.
so she wanted to escape.
But she was with Dee Dee. Didn't have a problem with Gypsy being with Nick, somebody more her age. She had a problem with her being with 50-year-old drug users. That's the problem. Or being with so one was a 50-year-old and the other one was 35. So that was the problem. She had no problem with her meeting Nick. The one picture of Nick and Gypsy together was taken by Dee Dee Blanchard. But Gypsy's story says that her mother hated Nick. In the meantime, things have come out now that shows where Dee Dee wrote, Gypsy's dating a wonderful young man named Nicholas. It's Nick. It's the same guy. So this story of the Munchausen by proxy and all of the ABUSE was fabricated so that she could get away with unaliving. During the interrogation, she says that she loves her mom, that her mom was just overprotective. That's what came out. Only lately has she turned this, like now she's saying the worst things about her mom. Like
I
she's
know, but
doubled.
age appropriate or otherwise, it's still going to come across as a controlling value to this young woman who wants to do or date whatever she wants to do. The mother put her hands and her energy on this girl to the degree that turned her psychotic. This is the titillating side of this kind of a story. The reality is that the mother does play a part in her own demise. We do get involved with bad behavior to some degree that can result in a fatality, and sometimes it's our own. I mean, I honestly want to see the state of Missouri do better, having looked at her longer and kept her under their wing a lot longer, either through parole or with an anklet, whatever. They need to do a regular session with her on a regular basis to make sure she's not going to go off the handle and make sure that the neighbors and other information about her is getting to a source because she's got this criminal
Well,
record.
what source would you like
Like
it to get to, Phil? I mean, like, what
she's like a
source should we
sex
tell
offender.
everybody that
She's
she
a
had
murder
Munchausen by
offender.
proxy
So
and
she
she's
needs
a
to be watched like
survivor?
a murder
Or should
offender.
we tell people that she's fucking dangerous as hell? I mean, what are we telling people?
Well, without a doubt, I'm just saying this is.
No,
She
I
needs
want
to
to
be
know
what
which
she
story are
is
we telling
like
people?
a sex offender. She needs to be watched as a murder offender. She needs the state of Missouri may let's hope is
She
doing the
doesn't
right
live
thing.
in Missouri. She lives in
I
Louisiana.
understand, but she's probably still subject to some of the criminal laws as a result of having been released from jail for a murder
Completely
charge in
off
that
now.
state.
Completely off now. Completely off. Did her parole. She's done. She's done.
Well, that's a sad state of affairs. You would think the state of of Missouri would have been involved to some degree with her aftercare.
They did. That's how she got off on this. They did. That's how she got off on this. There was a district attorney.
But I mean,
it was a district attorney. Was it a
through the
district
rest of her
attorney
life.
that wanted reelect? Not a district attorney. There was, I think, a judge that wanted reelection. There was somebody that wanted reelection. They got reelection because they said, "Look at Gypsy and look at how she talks and how she manipulates, and somebody's got to pay for that crime." And wow. And see, Nick's, just so you know, it took 3 people. Nick was her 3rd guy, and Nick has autism. He has the mind of like an 11-year-old, and it took her 2 years. And she told him, and you know how you could blame, I can't blame Dee. And here's an argument. If you blame Dee for the way that she raised her child, right? Or if you want to take some of the responsibility that's all Gypsy and her illness and throw it on her mom, then how do you argue when there's 5 kids and there's just one bad one? And the same mom, same dad, same situation.
Well, no, triggers are triggers. The behaviors that were on record indicate there is some malfeasance going on, and to some degree they were partnered to perpetrate and continue whatever grift went through their life. And naturally, when you're committing that kind of thing, you may have breakdowns and other triggers that result in a fatality. Well, this is what happened. She definitely is psychotic. She needs to be looked at. Gypsy Rose Blanchard, I'm certain, should be watched. And there should be, perhaps if there's not the state of Missouri, a third party that is now looking and making sure.
She's not in Missouri anymore. Her parole got moved to Louisiana.
I know she doesn't want to be involved with any of that. She supposedly deleted her social media accounts.
Nope, they're back again.
They're back again?
She's done that several times.
That means maybe perhaps the grift is about. This is people who are genuinely criminal are going to do that again if they think it got away with it. And she's young enough to do still something.
She supposedly has a daughter now.
What was that?
She supposedly has a daughter now. We say supposedly because there's nothing we can trust when it comes to Gypsy. The baby, I see 2 different babies, on the same day. A lot of people do. I've never seen where somebody claims to have had a child and so many people say, but did she really have a kid? Like, it doesn't, no, like I've had children and, like people are, I don't know if she has a kid or she doesn't have a kid, but here's what I do know. She will have access to children because she's going to meet people in her life that are going to have children. And here is a woman who already fantasized about going ahead and offering up her child. So she already saw that picture in her head. She already wrote it down so that people could see it and it was real. And she blamed it on Nick. So she knew that it wasn't a good look. But then it came out that it originated from her when the FOIAs were released, right? So, and she also sent inappropriate pictures to her dad. She sent nude photos of herself to her dad. So, should we blame everything on Dee?
No, of course not. I mean, and clearly, this girl she's activated. I'm surprised she didn't get recruited.
That's what we're going to call this one.
By specific kinds of
activated. I love that. I got to write that down, man. That's what we're going to call this one. Gypsy Rose is activated. I love that. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, she's a La Femme Nikita. If she had been steered in that direction, it sounds like she's got that kind of psychological makeup. But again, we're just talking and we're talking about whoever this person is. I certainly wish them, wholeness. And
who are you talking about? Who are you talking about?
that they come to terms with what wrong they have
Who are
done,
you talking about?
and they become repentant.
Who are you talking about?
The Gypsy Rose Blanchard. I hope that she finds a path where she can become repentant to the fact that she committed, matricide, that she unalived her mother. And
She did. She said it was so 10 years ago. Get over it.
no, penance is a period of time. If you look at the way human beings have lived throughout the ages, someone who's going to do penance for that, or civil service, or some other
Problem with
thing,
that,
is going to have a
Phil.
record of 20 years of behaviors dedicated to that at a minimum, you would
The
think.
problem with that, Phil, is that she just keeps doubling down on the story that's make believe. And people that have your attitude, unfortunately, make it easier for her
Well,
to
I don't.
blame it on. Wait a minute.
I'm a human being. I don't know what other people there, but whoever she is, whatever she is now to herself, you and I, as we come to terms with ourselves, only can wish that for another. That's all I'm saying. Is I wish that.
No. What I'm saying is, she's not going to own anything up as long as people believe that Dee Dee was the cause of this. And you're one of those people that believe
No,
that
no.
Dee Dee.
I certainly look. There's no. I'm not going to blame the victim and say she's the cause of her own aliving. That's not going to be the case. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm seeing them as partners in crime. I'm saying whatever has become activated in Gypsy Rose has its roots. And we see how those roots were watered, whether it by best intention or otherwise.
Why
Whatever,
couldn't it be
whatever
the
the story
dad that
goes,
didn't
as
want
far as a
anything to
medical
do with her?
diagnosis or otherwise,
Why couldn't it be the dad that didn't want anything to do with her? Why does it have to be the
well,
mother?
it's not so much even about that.
Well, you're
Whatever,
blaming the dad, the mother, but you're
again,
blaming
you're
Dee Dee.
using a pigeonhole. No one is saying blaming. I'm not saying blaming.
You're
I'm
saying
not.
she's responsible somewhat for her own
There
demise. What
are
do you call
responsible
that?
factors that lead to this kind of activation, and Gypsy
Why?
Rose is
But I'm saying, okay,
one to
then
be
why don't
watched.
you take that responsible factor and throw it at the dad? Because the mom was a single mom who was the dad was in arrears of child support, and she had a legitimately sick child.
Of course, the
The
simple fact
worst
is the
she
fact that she was
did.
raised by the single mom in the way that she was. Would you want to go and look at various layers of this? Sure, the father casts as much, if not equal value, you can put it to those terms. I'm the child of that as well. There are lots of people in this world where fathers, they shirk their duties and responsibilities. That's what they did. And women are often left to the raising of children. Without a doubt, the mother had
She
extra
was a
responsibility,
sick
but
child.
she still had the moral character to go in a criminal grift. And the daughter
She
was
was a
exposed to
sick
this.
child.
And
Before there was a criminal grift, there was
whatever
a
degree
sick
she was
child.
controlling, it led to this child's being
What
triggered, without a doubt.
controlling? That's what
She's 23
controlling?
years old and still going to the home where her mother lives, and not necessarily having a relationship with men based on the mother's values. She's doing it underhanded. She's sneaking out. She's triggered to have a second life. So what does she do in that second life? She plans her mother's unaliving to escape from it. No one's saying blame. We're just looking at factors here. The girl is
When
clearly
somebody is
clearly.
convicted of
I'm
murder,
going to go as far as say
I'm
she
sorry
has
that
gotten
you don't
away.
like the word blame, but let me
She's
ask
gotten
you.
away with murder. Let's put it to that degree.
Yeah. So when she got
That's Gypsy
so
Rose
let me ask
Blanchard.
you,
From
I'm sick
all
of the
indications,
semantics though,
she's gotten
Phil.
away with
I'm
murder.
fucking sick
10
with
years of
sick
her
of it.
life is
She's
clearly
blamed,
not.
and when you're blamed for something, I'm sick of the wordplay. Okay. Yeah,
Oh,
she
you're the
was
only one using
convicted.
the wordplay. I'm just saying
No,
it's
you
not
know what?
blame.
No,
I'm
no,
excluding that as a conclusion. I'm saying there are factors, and there are factors to consider.
no. When you sit there and say she was responsible for some of the unaliving, the fact that you don't want to use the word blame doesn't mean it's not there, because the definition is still
She's
there.
responsible for the triggering, not the unaliving. Nobody's responsible for their own unaliving because somebody murdered them. She's
What's
responsible
the
for the trigger.
triggering
No
is
one
what
is
I want.
blaming the victim.
What's the triggering? What is it? What triggered her? What is it? The fact that her mother didn't approve of her going out with a 55-year-old man and
No,
stealing
clearly
her
years of
drugs and
controlling
doing it?
behavior, whether it's
Or
called
the
Munchausen, this
35-year-old
medical
man
rat,
and stealing the drugs
boys,
and
this,
going?
then that, whatever it is, there was a dynamic between the two of them that broke, and it broke with her demise. And they were involved together for the longest time, having yielded a house and even a living and the make away and all this other stuff that she was able to yield out of this that broke. This is
Let
a
me
criminal
ask you a
enterprise
question.
that broke. People
She,
get unalived in
what
criminal enterprise.
about the micro deletion? That's okay. You can't have both.
I say
Okay.
we need to watch her. That without a doubt, the micro
But what I'm
deletion.
saying to you is,
You know, I mean, for her own
I'm
medical health.
saying to you is, you're saying that there's manipulation, that there was manipulation. I'm agreeing with you on the manipulation when it came to the birth dates. Absolutely. But not the manipulation. There was no manipulation except on Gypsy's part that has since come out that came about the sicknesses, the illnesses that make the Munchausen by proxy theory is gone. It's fucking gone because Gypsy was legitimately sick. The surgery she had, she said she had 40 surgeries. There's 4 scars. She had 4 surgeries. Okay. And one of
That's
them, I
such an
think, was
emotional conclusion.
her
She still
tonsils.
has factors in that, whether she was controlling it and to the degree she would have been diagnosed Munchausen, or she's playing up against it. You can still push the envelope of carrying someone's best interest to the wrong intention. I mean, this is why
She
the
didn't have Munchausen by
path is
proxy.
paved that way. I mean,
Because if you look up Munchausen by proxy, she would have had to have
I'm
made.
not saying she had it. No one is saying that to that degree. It's just part of that story. But for whatever factor is, I am saying she was controlling. And she was controlling this
Well,
child's life to the degree
but we
that
said
she
that at the
triggered the
beginning.
psychotic event of her own daughter waking up to the fact that her only escape is going to be doing harm to the mother. Just a horrible thing to experience, a horrible, terrible
So you
thing.
don't think she just wanted you? So you don't think she just wanted to leave? She could have left the situation. You know, her mother had cancer. Her mother was diabetic. Gypsy, why didn't she just fucking
Hey,
leave?
look, I know she could have left. I recognize I was a child of a stepfather. He was brutal. Why? Because it turned out he was the only child of a man who didn't have children who was brutal to him. And I look at the generations of that brutality. He would make you close your eyes and count to 5 and pick something up and hit you across the head if he thought you fucked up. He thought that you put him in a bad position or put him out in some other way. And he constantly made use of us, putting me on the job. I was carrying air conditioners up ladders, 2 and 3-story buildings, sometimes without him even pulling from the roof on the rope, being proud of my strength on a ladder or some other ridiculous thing. And I remember being so broken by that man repeatedly to the point where I ran away from home. Yes, she could have done something about it. She could have found her voice. She could have found her independence. I could have easily went the path of some psychotic, and I have a brother who actually went down that road to some degree, to the degree that he became addicted and did the crack thing. To the point of now he has found Jesus. Jesus is a new crack. I give him all the credit in the world, at least getting himself out of that and doing the right thing by others. But back in the day, he could have easily went that direction as well as I. I have a third brother who
Do
saw
you know
that
that
and
there's
got out
so
of it
much
as soon as
trauma
possible.
in people's lives? There's trauma practically in everybody's life anymore.
I have a sister who was
Unfortunately.
reportedly raped by him and gave birth to one of his children. There's a simple fact that yes, we can pull ourselves out of it, but that's evil still existed and perpetrated itself against my family. Did I go back there and murder him? No. I went back and saw him as a human being. I saw him as an alcoholic. And he ended up dying of cirrhosis of his liver. I didn't have to attend his funeral. I had closure with the man, but I know his story. His story is a part of my story. I was able to move on from that. It takes a lot, certainly, for people to pick up their bootstraps, so to speak, and emotionally separate themselves, find some kind of form to themselves. Was she able to do that? No, but identified to a large degree with someone being controlled by people who are brutal.
Where was her mother brutal?
I think having shit inserted in your body, whether it's by medical means or by other means, is brutal. That's
Okay.
why I
So
chose
you're
that
talking
word.
about the feeding tube.
And all the drugs and all the
What
reality that
drugs?
this
There's
world.
no drugs. No, 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 no. Nope, nope, nope,
She
nope,
was
nope.
treated for years, so she has a pharmaceutical record. You can't deny that.
I
The
can
degree
deny it. I can absolutely so deny it. And I could prove it
the
to you
mother
right
fulfilled
here.
these
I'll prove
pharmacies.
it to you.
They've been keeping records for years on this.
No, 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 no. At the crime scene, the medicine cabinet, all over the counter bullshit. Gypsy left. Gypsy didn't take anything but pain pills so that she could sell them. They weren't in her system when she got arrested. They weren't in her mother's system at all. Her mother had no numbing agent. The feeding tube again was proven that she went in there malnourished. And the feeding tube was essential because she had a swallow problem where she'll even say, I couldn't eat solid food. So the feeding tube was inserted in her so that she could get nutrients and so that she could come up in her weight, which in fact worked for her. So that was something
I
needed.
know you keep bringing that up, but again, what does it take to feed your child, even if she can't swallow, food that's going to be nourishing her to the degree that she's going to be strong and healthy? She could have been having any number of dietary changes that the best interest of this child in place. Instead, the mother was seeking a medical answer because she thought there was something wrong with her.
There
For some
was
reason,
something
there's
wrong with
something,
her for the millionth time. She has a micro
but that
deletion.
also means there was something wrong with the mother. She's not seeing clearly. She's only looking for one solution in Western medicine that they didn't have an answer for till 4 or 5 years before she passed. And I say passed, that's not right, before she was unalived. And to give honor to that person, I'm sad that that resulted in that. I would not go back.
So
And when
now
I
Dee
think of
Dee's
my younger
problem is
self,
she only went to
the times
Western
that I was angry,
medicine.
I would not go back and see myself doing harm to my stepfather. And as
So
much harm as he did to our
okay,
family,
yeah.
I
Again,
would not.
talking
And
about
then he
okay.
went along and made new children with my mother so that they had new family. To the point that even today is my mother's birthday, that I can only wish her happy birthday and not necessarily be in her life. I got to give what I have from my mother to other elder women in care and the caregiving role that seemingly is vacant as
I
boomers.
want to know where the abuse is when it came to Dee Dee, and you just can't give it to me. Every time you bring up
I have
something,
outlined
I bring up
repeatedly
a
she's
valid
using
thing.
it's abuse by proxy. I don't know why you're not able to see that. Anyone invasively putting their hands on your body is abuse. I'm sorry.
She
And
was
medically
a
otherwise, having your
child.
teeth
Oh
removed,
my
having
God.
things
She was
injected
a
in your body,
child at
taking
the
drugs,
time.
constantly being steered, you're seeing it as some kind of lollipop. It's not. It's
You're
actual abuse.
trying to villainize Dee Dee
And it's
because she went
brutal.
to Western medicine
I'm
as
not. No one
opposed
is
to
trying to
going to
villain.
some sort of fucking
You're looking
guru.
for conclusions. No one is trying to villainize this person.
Well, you
She's a
sat there and
parent
said
who
she
may
only
be by
went to
best
Western
interest or
medicine.
otherwise
You said
steered
she only
wrong.
went to Western medicine. You said that. She
I don't
only
know.
went to Western medicine. Yeah, that's what she knew. She was in the medical field at one time. Dee Dee was.
Right,
And yes, she went to Western medicine and she
right.
counted on them finding out what was wrong with her child. And her child was misdiagnosed several times until the micro deletion.
I don't
And
know.
you're
When you're really
saying, well,
interested
she
in
should have let
healing,
her
you're
starve,
open up to the
basically.
way the
She
world
should
is
have let
healing.
her
There's a lot
daughter
more than
starve.
just Western medicine. So that's why that probably came up as far as my intuition goes. You know, if I have a child, I'm going to try everything on earth to make sure my child is going to be right. If
That's
it's a
what she
mud
felt
bath
like
in
she was
fucking
doing.
Mexico, I'm going down to mud bath in Mexico and dipping my child in a mud bath. Whatever it is, I'm going to try and seek healing for the symptoms that are seemingly, and I'm going to be as least invasive as possible
Mhm.
on the well-being and as much dignity as I can afford this life that I'm responsible for in this world.
So while you're saving the money to go to Mexico and your daughter is waking up at night because she is choking on her own saliva, what? Like what? What then? And how long should we wait
Throw her in a
until
fireman hole
the
and you get her to
child
an emergency
gets
room. I don't know
so
what are you talking about.
malnourished
I don't know.
that they
I'm just
find it
saying
abused by
the
you,
reality
that
is that
you're the abuser
there's
because
a
you're not
different
getting
kind
your
of
kid
moral
medical
value
help?
that you're trying to get at. There is no innocent person that we can then hagiographically worship in some face of form that we light candles to because she was unalived. She played a factor in her own daughter's triggering, and that resulted in her unaliving. I'm sorry, but this person was involved with either controlling or manipulating her child to the degree that wasn't nourishing the individual, the person that she had given birth. There wasn't this exchange of love. There was an exchange of an idea of love.
So
My idea of
regardless,
love is being clever about your health. My idea of love is about being, important about the symptoms and making sure
yeah,
you're,
you
you're not
also
ill.
have to
The
make
idea of
sure
love
that
is
you
always
don't have.
projecting that
You
you're ill and
also
that we
have
got
to
to make
make
you
sure.
recover. It's
Yeah,
very,
okay.
very
So I'm
sad.
glad, but you also have to make sure that you follow the rules of the state so your kid's not taken away. Okay, so there's rules that have to be followed
Well,
too. Where
maybe
you
if the
didn't
child was
take your
taken
kid to a
away,
fucking
maybe if the
mud
child
bath
was taken
in
away, this
Mexico,
child might have
because
actually
nobody's
grown
going to
up
value the mud
without
bath
being
in
triggered.
Mexico.
This child wouldn't necessarily be triggered had it been taken away. Maybe there should have been a look-see by CPS a lot earlier. And why not? It's a horrible thing to say. CPS sucks to families and
Well,
children.
they
I
did
was in
go.
the
They
foster
did
care
go there.
system. I
They
know.
did
I
go
know
there.
firsthand.
First of all, CPS went there. They
I know
went
she
there
got a
one
pass
time. CPS went
because
there
of the
one
medical
time
thing.
and found nothing. Nothing.
Dee Dee's medical grift was par excellence. That's all I'm saying. You have to look at the varying factors of this. This is a criminal
No,
enterprise.
you have to. I
It's
did look at them. I
a
implored
horrible
you
thing.
to look into them, but we're going to disagree on this.
What are we disagreeing on? Because I have no idea. You want to create a disagreement. I don't know. What are we
No,
disagreeing on?
I don't think Dee Dee's responsible at all for the unaliving of herself. Not at fucking all.
Well, no, not for the unaliving herself. I agree 100%. We're
I
not in
think that
disagreement.
but you said, I mean, when we play this video
What I
back,
just said
you
was
say that
she's
she's
responsible for the
responsible
triggering
for
of her daughter.
partial.
She's responsible for the behaviors that led her daughter down
I
the road
don't
of
believe that. That's where we disagree.
results. I mean,
That's where we
schizophrenic break,
disagree.
whatever you want to diagnose it as, who the hell knows? I'm
That's
just
where we
saying
disagree.
that it happened.
That's where we disagree.
That
I
this
think
this parent of this child triggered this child. That there is some mitigating responsibility that goes along with this. It's like comparative negligence. She happened to be in the car at the same time that Gypsy Rose was for all that time. You can't say that there wasn't the behavior that helped trigger this daughter. How could you make a case for that?
I can certainly say that.
Please. You're saying then that this child was born evil? This child
Yes.
was born with a knife
Oh,
in their
yes.
teeth, ready
That's
to kill their
exact.
mother? And why didn't
And
she
that's what
unalive
I
her
said.
earlier? Oh,
That's
you're
what I
thinking that.
said.
Why would
That's
you
what
think that? That's so
that's
sad.
what I
Please don't think
fucking
that.
said
Humanity
20
wasn't born
minutes
like
ago. I
human
said
beings
that
aren't
20
born like
minutes
that.
ago.
You asked you tried to lure me into how was she born? She's born tabula rasa. She's born a clean slate. She learned this from the mother.
Okay.
She
And
didn't.
I don't
The
nope, I ain't
evil is
buying
put
into
out
that.
of
No.
us, if you will, through your
I feel like
choices.
it's people that believe that have given Gypsy Rose her leeway to get away with murder. It's the same people that fucking gave her the 10 years is exactly what you're saying. She got 10 years because of the attitude that you're saying that the mother triggered this behavior.
No, she got mitigating circumstances on serving. I just think it was still too light of a sentence in relation to the fact that she manipulated this young man, and there's clear-cut evidence that she manipulated this young man into doing the unaliving, and he's serving the brunt of the sentence. And he's doing it diluted to the fact that he thinks he still loves her, and that there's still he'll always have feelings for her, whatever he said behind his bearded mug. I mean, did you see that big round beard that the poor kid was going out there? I mean,
Yeah, I'm not sure he has that anymore. I don't really know what he looks like.
whatever it is, I think that
saw it.
they've done wrong
Saw the
by
interview.
the mental health relationship that Missouri has shown in this criminal venture, and that largely what it was, there's this folie à deux, folie à famille.
Let me ask you a question. Do you
There's
think
a
that there
legal
was
there's a
something
legal
wrong?
place for people who are kind of crazy amongst each other and do this horrible thing. So if she was knowledgeable of the boyfriend, if the mother was knowledgeable of the boyfriend, and Nick was, Nicholas, the loving daughter, and then they still schemed to unalive her. This is all kind of in the family, kind of a kind of family madness that was going on. I'm thinking that there's a hot potato handoff here that Ruby, Gypsy Rose ended up without taking in her hand, that Godejohn ended up with. He's
What do
stuck
you
in jail for the rest of his life with the hot potato of being responsible for this unaliving. And that is a horrible
Well,
thing.
wait a minute. He unalived her, according to you, so, which I don't think. I think he unalived an unalived person, which, okay, it's just as bad. He said 4 jabs. So he's convinced that she was alive. I'm not sure she was alive, but that doesn't even matter at this point. Why?
Well, it
Why?
did go before a
Why?
jury.
Wait a
And
minute.
then
Why
before a
isn't he
jury.
responsible for what he did? Why wasn't his family all fucked up? And why isn't? I mean,
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case. I mean, and he is obviously responsible to the largest degree of what he did, but there should be mental health considerations. They automatically showed deference right off the bat by taking, execution off the table, because initially they wanted to execute these 2 young people for this
I,
unaliving.
well, that's why
State of
Gypsy got
Missouri is
away with
hot,
what she
hot
got.
on the button for that. I'm going to blame the state of Missouri to the largest degree of the mishandling of this man's sentence, and the fact that he's
First of all, Nick was manipulated, as you know. He was totally manipulated. He has the mind of an 11-year-old child, but still knew wrong because he had reached out to people. He was back and forth, played with, back and forth, and totally manipulated, and was told that this was the only way, and then was told that she unalived the baby because of a feeding tube. There was never a baby. There was so much shit. When she first met Nick, the very first time that they saw, the second time they saw each other was when he unalived the mother. You know that, right? That was only
Yeah,
the
it was
second
right
time
after
they
the movie
physically
theater or
saw.
some other
No, it
thing, right?
wasn't. No, it wasn't. The movie
Not
theater
after, right after, but I mean, the only other time where they had
was
met
the
was
movie theater, right? The movie theater where they go into the men's room and she hops his bones and he can't get erect. But this whole thing is sexual. There's sexual deviance here that she gets off on by the gore. And we know this. We know this because of how disgusting her wholesome fucking kink is.
Well, nonetheless, I like to exclude that from my understanding of what the criminal behavior was, simply because that's a realm of really misguided kind of judgments, and it weighs against women. So I try to stay away from that. But clearly, whatever deviance was
Well,
going on,
but see,
or
I have a
whatever
problem with
behavior
that
was going
because
on
I
that
think
led
that's
to that,
totally part of the
it all was
crime
part of
and
whatever
part of
was
the
triggering the
incentive of
murder.
the crime.
What was that? I'm
Because
sorry.
there was too much sex going on. I think it was part of the crime. I think
I
it
know,
was
but it's the
part of
titillating
the
side of that
incentive
that
of the crime.
that
I don't
kind of
care,
takes
but
away from
it's
the
there. You
criminal
can't ignore that.
behaviors that led to that. I want to stay. The focus, I think, is on what she led this man to do, based on
No, the thing started about
her
why
need to
the
either
mother
escape
was
or
unalive. You're saying the mom was unalive because of behaviors partially
that triggered the
that did
daughter.
that.
There were
And
there
I'm
may have
saying
been
to you,
some contributing factor.
wait
Yes.
a minute. There is a whole kink thing that plays a huge part in it because it played a part in it. There's a video of them that they had the night after the unaliving where they talk about it, where they actually talk about that. And
It's a sticky wicket, and it's a razor's edge. But a jury did find some mitigating circumstances. And as much as I have a problem with the state of Missouri, I don't have a problem with the legal process, and certainly not the jurisprudence of a courtroom and a jury of her peers. So to whatever degree they found mitigating circumstances, I will have to honor that as part of this. I just think that the state has dropped the ball as far as a deeper look and a deeper hold on what this murderer was to her own mother and what she is to this man who's now taking the brunt of this particular crime. And he really should not only get an appeal, but he should be looked at a mental health from a mental health perspective. And the kind of punishment should be commensurate with his level of participation. If he'd only had, those two interactions with her, two events with her, that really doesn't speak much to him. It speaks so much more to her. And if there were 2 years it took for Gypsy to convince for a trip from Wisconsin to where they were in Missouri, then that reality needs to be absolutely factored in this kid's defense. He does not sound like he got the proper defense. She had the better team of lawyers. And I'm sorry to reiterate that, but clearly this woman was able to take advantage, like in her mother's kind of skills, whatever grift was present, she speaks like with her baby girl voice. She does this manipulative thing. She's, constantly either, in some amorphous state where she's not defined with the truth in any way, shape, or form. She's waiting for you to do, and then agree with you or disagree with you on a truth. And it's a common behavior. It's kind of like the defensive relationship of someone who's narcissistic, or someone who's a borderline personality as a result of a narcissist. It's a constant criminal thing, I'm sure, now with her to watch her. And if somebody's not doing that, we have to trust that she's going to develop into something else and not get involved in another crime. You're already aware that she has a personality that you've already identified. She has a personality that is likely to commit another crime and is likely to be involved in some kind of malfeasance. That's a sad thing. That's a very sad thing. So, and as far as blame goes, I just want you to be aware. I'm just looking at the widest possible level of this, and there are lots of layers. There's strata of layers of information, data, and story that relate to what the mother was to this child. And I know, having a relationship with my own mother and my own stepfather, what that can be like to be suffering in a controlled kind of environment and not necessarily be triggered, to be hopefully triggered in a positive way, to find loving relationships with beautiful souls like yourself and be able to have vital transfers and vital exchanges with people. Can Ruby have that? Can Gypsy Rose have that? I don't know.
Why do you keep calling her Ruby?
No, I have this just popped in my head twice now, Ruby.
Yeah.
Maybe
that was one of her personas.
That was one of her nicknames. Yeah, okay, that's what it was. Yeah.
Fake ass personas.
Yeah, she did some cosplay and a bunch of other things, right?
Well, it was part of the kink that you don't want to talk about.
Well, it's not so much that I don't want to talk about.
It has so much to do with the crime. That's what it has so much to do with the crime.
I just think it's gratuitous. It's titillating.
No, I think it's a motivator. I think it's a cause and a motivator, and that behavior still exists today. And unless it's addressed, it's going to perpetuate into something a lot bigger, because that's what happened last time.
The concern of that behavior existing today is definitely a concern, without a doubt. You're spot on with that, but there's a reality to opening up that door. And if you don't have to open the door because the evidence in play and the behaviors in play are already conclusive, there's no reason to open that door, because it is emotional, it is titillating, and it speaks to a deeper psychological phenomena going on.
She's never had any therapy to get past this shit.
Is she getting therapy now?
No.
Did she not get therapy during her 10 years? Did she not do growth or some other psychological profiling?
Her requirement in prison was to get her GED.
Well, she was a kid.
No, she wasn't a kid. You just got done saying she was 23.
She was stunted.
She was 23. See, this is the problem that we have.
She was 23, right? But she's not. You're saying she wasn't stunted. She wasn't stunted. She wasn't lied to about her age. Didn't know her true age.
She didn't. No, she knew her true age. Fucking, she knew it. She knew her true age. You know how we know she knew her true age? Because there's pictures of birthday cakes with the number on the cake. Not candles, the fucking number on the cake.
Right, but do you know what year? I mean, like if I looked at a picture of myself from 1963 with a number on my cake that said I'm 2 years old, I would have looked at it and said,
No,
"Oh,
but when you see it,
I
it
don't
says
know."
8 years old. You start looking forward to your ninth, and when it says 9, you start looking forward to the 10th. And you remember. Like you give Gypsy no credit. You seems to
No, it's
me
not.
like
I'm just
you give a lot of
I'm
it
not
to
laying it
Dee,
all. I'm
and
not
Dee
laying it.
unalived here. Easy blow, like
No,
everybody
no,
else, just blaming on the
absolutely
dead
not.
person.
I am not. I am not laying the entire blame on the unaliving on her. What she does subsequent is hers. What she did up to that point, to some degree, there is a percentage of factors that relate to how she was triggered, what led to her life. That is
Why
kind of where
couldn't
the
her mom
explanation
just
is.
be doing the right thing by this micro deletion that wasn't diagnosed until 4 years before she died?
But that's not the
Why couldn't it
story.
have been
That is
that?
not the
But
story. That is a
it
nice way
is
to
the
rephrase the
story.
story. That's a nice way to reframe the story if you want,
No,
but that's
that's
not
what
the
the
story.
fucking
There's
medical
more to
records
that
show.
story. The
No,
more to that
the
story.
medical records show this.
The
The
medical
medical
records show the
Don't go
microdeletion.
by
The
the
medical
act.
records also
Don't go by
show
the act.
that the mother
You
was
can't go
involved
by
with
the
his
act.
daughter's medical history and where she was steered as far as being medically manipulated to the
She
degree that
was
she
fucking
was.
sick. I can't say that any better. What language do you speak? Phil, she had a fucking micro deletion that
I
wasn't
understand that.
diagnosed
You keep
until
adhering to
4
that.
years.
She had symptoms. I understand that. But she still has a medical record where it clearly was by direction and by symptoms related from the mother.
That's
And
where you
medical
are
procedures were
incorrect.
ordered, medical
You are
procedures were done
incorrect.
based
You
on
are
the mother's
incorrect.
responsibility as the child's
Where did you see
sole
those medical records? Where
parent.
did you see them? Where'd you see them? Where did you fucking see the medical records you're talking about? On the act?
No, I saw it in on the documentary.
No.
This is
So
why
the
that's
FOIA,
why
so
there's a
wait a minute.
legal
No,
case.
no, no,
I
no,
don't know
no,
why
no,
you want to
no,
go up
no,
like that.
no. Some of those medical.
This is an easy fix. You can easily verify this. The part of the court case that led to Gypsy being mitigated to only a 10-year sentence was based on these medical records. They
Because
exist.
there was
You
stuff
want to
that
challenge them,
wasn't
doesn't
shown.
make sense to challenge them.
But no, but yes, it
And
does.
you're not going to
Because
pin no,
yes,
because
it
you're not going to
does.
pin anything on being able to challenge them. They exist.
Listen to me. You're not seeing all of the fucking medical records. There's over 1,000 pages of medical records.
There were medical records supposedly lost in a fire or some other thing.
No, through the fucking hurricane.
Hurricane.
Okay, but here, what you've missed and what you haven't seen, apparently, is since this, the FOIAs have come out, and that shows the month in the hospital with the salivary glands and the swallowing, all of this stuff that was brought on. This stuff wasn't shown
But you're
because
just
it
making
didn't.
a case
Listen
for
to
the fact
me,
that the mother
because
did
can
that.
I finish? Because it didn't go in her favor for the Munchausen by proxy, because her being legitimately sick doesn't equal Munchausen by proxy. It's not that the fucking records weren't there. It's that they weren't utilized because
Right, but
they were there
you're
because
making
we
a
have them
conclusion.
now.
You're making a conclusion she was legitimately sick based on a diagnosis years after. During her childhood, she was just sickly. And the mother's treatment of her was an extension of the mother's control and part of the mother's
No, she
gift.
was sick.
There
She
is
was
clear
legitimately
evidence
sick.
that
If
was
she figured,
expressed that was part of the mother's grift as well. And as a
I
result,
can't,
not
I
only did
can't,
they have a
I
livelihood,
can't.
he had a
I
place.
can't. You're not willing to whatever you say. You're not whatever. It's people like you, seriously, that have
I don't know
allowed
why you want to group
Gypsy,
me with
because
some bunch of people. I
because
don't.
you're ignoring facts that have come out since the
What am I
trial.
ignoring?
Exactly what I told you. Exactly what I told you an hour and
They're
18
not
minutes
being
ago.
ignored. They're factored in just as much as everything else. I don't know why you're not seeing that. I've tried to express
because
that.
you didn't see any medical records. You had somebody read bullshit to you. You had
Regardless,
no,
regardless of my
because they're
source, you
not
want to attack
medical
my
records.
source, that's fine. But the reality on the ground is there are behaviors by the mother controlling this child that triggered this child.
Where was the controlling? We're going to go back to that, and you're going to go to the feeding tube, and you're going to go to the eye surgery, and we're going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
I don't know
But
why,
the
because you're
medical
not willing to
records
accept
show
that.
that the
Those are
feeding
brutal
tube was
exchanges.
needed. But if you don't want to see that the feeding tube was needed, then
Right,
don't.
but think about it, that whether it was needed or not,
God,
it
how could that even
spoke
be
to
in
the
one
same level
sentence?
of controlling behavior that this child
What is she
experienced.
supposed to do? Let her kid starve so then she gets a murder charge, or
Of
she gets her kid taken away? What is she supposed to do? What do you do
She
when your
did the
kid
path,
doesn't
she
fucking
followed
eat?
the path that she had in mind. Another parent may have done something else, but whatever it was that she followed, she also triggered this child. She's not entirely innocent. I don't know why you're willing to see. A jury of this girl's peers stood and made a determination she's not entirely innocent. And it was based on the evidence that was shown at the time. There was enough
Okay.
evidence there
And
that
I'm
was shown.
telling you, yeah, exactly. And evidence could be made up and lied, and people could lie and all that bullshit. It's a good thing that it doesn't stop there. It's a good thing that it doesn't stop there, because the system fails us all the time. So it's
But
a good
even
thing
if
it
new
doesn't stop.
evidence came out, it would still not relieve this woman of the choices she made.
That's where you
The
and I
behavior is
disagree.
sexual.
The choices she made by trying to keep her daughter alive, where you think she should have went and had a mud bath in Mexico.
No,
Yeah,
no, no,
absolutely.
no, no. I wouldn't necessarily do that as a comparative to that degree. I said if I was a parent, I would be seeking healing. And that was different than you identified
Well,
Western
okay.
medicine
Is
as
it
well.
fair to
And that's
say?
healing. Wait,
Is
wait,
it
wait, wait. You just brought that up again because to me, that's an attack on the source of the thing rather than on the behavior itself. She still was involved to her daughter's decision
I'm not
making.
buying into.
That
I'm
was
not going to let you buy. I'm not. You're not going to sell me that. First of all,
well,
neither
that's why
one of
this
us.
is an
First
argument.
of all, neither one of us have children, so neither
No, we
one of
don't.
us have been in a position to try
We
to
both have
comfort
brain
our
cells.
child. Neither one of us have been so desperate that we feel like our child is going to stop breathing in the middle of the night. And how do we fix that? Neither one of us have been there. I would think that I
Okay,
would do
again,
anything.
you're attacking source. That doesn't mean anything. I've been in situations responsible for children that could lose their breath in the middle of the night. And they've been of different ages and different mental capacities. I understand what that feeling is. Okay.
Not when it's your
I'm
own.
only going to say
Not
to
when
the
it's
degree
your
that it was
own.
my own,
Not when it's
I
your
would have
own.
gone and put a child in a bath in Mexico if I thought that would help heal the child. I was giving you that as an example of what healing was. That's my sensibility. But to the degree that she was a parent, she did things that led to this child not only feeling controlled, but a desire to escape that she was triggered to psychotically end her mother's life. There
This
are
is going to
mitigating
be an
circumstances. A
excellent
jury
argument,
already found this.
because I think you're going to get a few people that are going to be on side with you, but most of the people
Well,
are going to
I'm not
fucking
looking to
curse
this.
you
I
out
don't look
over
to
this.
divide the world in any way, shape, or form. We are one people. We are one thing. The, the,
Not
the
when you
jury
listen.
already
This is
found
the
this information.
argument. I don't think you're going to be very popular in this. But then again, Gypsy's people watch my shit. So among those people, you'll be famous. They'll love you. They'll fucking love you. But for the people that I feel have common sense and know the case, they're not going to be happy. But that's
I
all
know,
right.
I
That's
know,
all
but that's
right.
bad form. Ultimately, that's bad form. To be honest with you, I wouldn't. To have a better sense of where this is at is to look at what I'm saying as far as the behavior. I'm not making any emotional interpretation on any of them
But
or
you
any
are.
situation.
Oh, you fucking are. You
No, I
so are. Yes, you are.
no.
And I'm
You're
telling you.
you're
And
making
I'm
a
telling no,
mistake
no, no.
there.
I'm gonna
You're
prove why you
projecting and
are.
you're actually trying
No,
to
I'm gonna
gaslight me.
prove.
I'm
I'm
letting
gonna
you know
prove.
I've lived through that as a
That's
person.
how you
I can
are.
point out the
That's how
behaviors.
you are. That's
That's
how
part of the
exactly how
behavior.
you're bringing emotion
Again,
into
you're
it.
attacking source. You're not looking at the
No,
behavior and what
you
the facts are
are
on the ground, what it
exactly
is.
doing exactly what you say you're not doing. By not bringing emotion, you certainly are bringing emotion because you keep bringing up your past.
You
So,
can't
yes,
mistake the absence of emotion for emotion. I'm not bringing up emotion. I'm not trying to make it emotional. I'm trying to de-escalate from that
that's
so that we
fine.
can actually exchange more about what it's about, and that is that there are
There's
mitigating
nothing
factors.
more to there.
A
This
jury already
argument,
found this based on the evidence that was presented. There
and
was
I'm telling
mitigating
you
factors.
that there was evidence that was kept, and certainly evidence kept from his trial.
Well,
So,
without a
yeah,
doubt, there
both,
should be a
both.
retrial. Without a doubt, the state of Missouri made mistakes there. I will concede that. But there's a concession on your part that's necessary too, that there are mitigating factors that the mother contributed to this daughter
I'm not
being
giving, nope,
being
I don't believe that.
being
Not
triggered.
at all. I don't believe it at all. I told you why I don't believe it, because Gypsy was legitimately sick. And the fact that her mother was trying to find out what was wrong with her daughter by going through Western medicine is not abuse, in my opinion. You see it as invasive. I see it as trying to save her daughter's life. That's the division between us. That's it. That's the truth. That's where we have our problem here. I see it as her trying to save the kid's life, and you see it as being invasive. That's the difference here. I'm going to get me some more water. I don't know where else to go with this, to be honest with you, because we're not gonna reach, and that's fine. Um, it's fine. We can end it on the argument where we just don't agree. I'm never in a million years going to agree. And let me finish, okay? And I'm never going to agree with the fact that Dee Dee at all helped or had any responsibility in her unaliving.
So you think the jury got it wrong?
The jury completely got it wrong because you have to remember she took a plea deal.
This stuff came out during his trial, right?
She went to court multiple times during the legal process for the murder of her mother. She had several pre-trial and preliminary court hearings after her arrest in June 2015. Plea deal and sentencing. In July 2016, she appeared in court to plead guilty to second-degree murder as part of a plea arrangement or a plea agreement. Okay? So she didn't. In 2018, Gypsy Rose took the witness stand and testified in court during the separate trial of her former boyfriend, Nick.
I have not read the discovery of the court, so I don't really know the exchanges that went.
Well, this is what I'm trying to share with you, is that this stuff was
Well, then there
kept.
was a prosecutor's office that agreed to her plea. I mean, either way,
Yeah, he
there are
was trying to
mitigating
get
factors.
he was getting reelection, and it wasn't going to look good to see Gypsy take this Gypsy get death. The death
And
was on,
what do you think that was?
well, because Gypsy looked a lot younger than she was, spoken that voice. Why'd she get a plea deal? Why was she allowed to get a plea deal? Charles
Because
Manson
their
didn't get a plea deal.
prosecutor obviously agreed to whatever evidence was in place that a plea would satisfy this particular crime.
You do, okay. So
They offered the same plea to go to John, and he refused his.
well, because he was telling the truth and Gypsy lied.
Well, he also thought he was a hero. He had mental health issues that were
Well,
not
did you
factored
not?
into
You didn't
that.
see the interrogation. The interrogation video. The
I saw good portions of the interrogation video and a subsequent video that he was in prison.
Okay,
You know,
so right, the one where he's got the beard and he's on the phone. The interview. Yeah, it was the interview. But in the interrogation video, you clearly see his the detective say to him, to be noble, or what? Well, I think the word was noble, right? It was something like that. As far as doing the right thing by Gypsy, He was manipulated. He should
It
have.
was immediately suspect that they were questioned to the degree that they were without attorneys. That level of crime, they should have automatically been afforded attorneys, whether they said they wanted them.
Well, Gypsy said she wanted one, and so, but Nick didn't know any better.
So that's something that, again, we can put on the state the way the system that they went through. But the prosecutor clearly had enough evidence to do whatever he did, whether it was he's getting elected or otherwise. You look at the evidence that she has a medical history
I'm not going there
before
again.
the age of 18 that the mother was involved with, and you can conclude that this child was triggered by her mother's controlling behavior until the age of 23.
There is no way in hell that I'm going to get on that fucking train with you. She was a sick child. I'm not going to, she was a sick child that the mother was trying to find a cure for.
So then the mother's a saint that was wrongly killed by an evil person, and God knows it's still just as sad. And I agree 100%. It's a horrible thing. But I know, having been a child of people, for whatever reason, involved with underhanded shit, affects the child.
Everybody has some sort of fucking bullshit in their life with their family, Phil.
Nonetheless, we still.
I was in the witness protection program, Phil. You know I was in the witness protection program,
what I am now
right?
is in part because of the way they were. I just chose a different path.
Okay, so I was in the witness protection program. You know that. And my subscribers know that. My subscribers know that. Okay, so you know that, and you and I met because I came from a fucked up childhood, and actually I was living with your foster sister, right? Because I didn't want to live at home, right?
We shared family,
and I was under 18, right?
You were my sister in this life.
So I'm asking you, if I was under 18, I didn't live at home. I lived with your foster sister, who ends up only being, in actuality, 6 years older than me.
Yeah, right, with the laundromat, right? I remember.
Okay, so here I was, 15 years old, and I was living with a 21-year-old and a 22-year-old, Frank and Kathy, right? Here's the thing.
They were old souls, though. You know that, right?
But it doesn't matter. Here's the thing. How I live my life, yes, is a part of my past. Yeah, so we have a choice, right? We either live our lives and make things better, or we use things as a crutch to continue to make things to keep things the same, or we just totally go off the fucking deep end because we're sick in the head and we just make things worse. So Gypsy didn't do 1, 2, Gypsy did 3. Now, if there were 5 kids in that home, I don't think all 5 kids would have done exactly what Gypsy did. So Gypsy's going to take responsibility, in my opinion, for being the sick fuck that she's decided to be. Her mother, the guilt that her mother had, and this is what Gypsy has said herself, okay? Her mother made her world. All Gypsy had to do was exist. That's the manipulation. That's the abuse. Now, if you want to call that abuse, okay. I don't think that's healthy, that a person makes their kid their whole world. But when you have a sickly kid who you're not sure what's wrong with, and you add that on top of it, and it's just you and them in this great big world because nobody wants anything to do with you, I don't think that's abuse. I think that's called survival. And I think Gypsy was sick. We know she was sick. We know it was only 4 years before she unalived her mom that she got the diagnosis, and didn't even get the diagnosis for the correct chromosome until a year or 2 before the unaliving of her mom.
Right, but still, abuse, neglect, survival. I remember as a kid actually being homeless for a period of time. And during that time, my mother was gone. She was the sole parent at the time for, I think, 3 nights in a row it was. And it turned out she was having an abortion that went wrong during that time. This was in the very early 70s. And I remember having to fend and go into a store and do some shoplifting in order to feed my brothers and sisters, because I was the oldest at the time, and I remember their cries and their tears. And that level of co-parenting and pain that goes along with finding out that something dark and negative happened. There's nothing, no feeling like that. And still, the choices we make, right? I agree 100%. Whatever, and the same for him, to having actually done whatever he did, 4 stabs or otherwise, dead body or otherwise. There's a trigger that happens based on the factors of our life. Clearly, his mother had, done whatever she did in his life, controlled, his story to the degree that he's.
Okay, so wait. I don't want to talk about Nick because
Oh, okay. All right.
only because there is
Well, just
more
a
or less.
related.
Wait a minute. No. More or less, there is an agreement and a respect that we're not talking about Nick's mom.
Well, nonetheless, I hear that and I respect that now too. So now that you've identified it, I didn't know that beforehand.
Yeah,
Well,
I know.
when it comes to her and her behavior, she's clearly responsible. She's gotten away with murder. He is suffering. It's a horrible story, and I hope it comes to a better outcome. That his appeal can go through. That she has some reckoning that allows her to truly come to terms and have a sense of repentance that every soul, that every individual can have. If it can be public and aware that others to find some justice for Dee Dee. I mean, would you say there's justice for Dee Dee? Is that there's some kind of
Yeah, so
scale to balance for her? I don't
yeah,
know. I mean,
yeah. So I feel like there is a justice for Dee Dee, and the justice for Dee Dee is um to change the false narrative. First of all, she wasn't diagnosed with Munchausen by proxy. You have to be alive to be diagnosed by Munchausen by proxy, and you have to have made the person sick. Do you know, this is just true, this is facts, you can look it up. If Gypsy Rose Blanchard was honestly a victim of Munchausen by proxy, she would be the first person ever to unalive the person with the Munchausen. You could look that up.
I don't know that. And honestly, what the
No,
one thing
I
that
mean,
I
I'm not
can
telling
know.
you, look it up. Look it up.
Okay,
That's
we
a
can look it
true
up, but I'm
fact.
saying the one thing I can know is that the prosecutor who looked at this, who initially wanted to kill both of these people for this murder, because that is the order of business that they do in Missouri, that would have been the case, that was looking at every chance to do this, saw enough mitigating factors to reduce
Be-
her sentence. That didn't happenstance to that degree, with even if it's something he's doing politically to look good in the papers, he still has to pass the record of jurisprudence that is something that has to stand. And the appeals have been leveled, and apparently the last appeal for what's his name, Mr. Godejohn, is 2023 or so in December, and they can take their time responding to the rest of it. According to the state of Missouri, they can take their frickin' time. So 5 years from now, they can look at it and say finally, whether or not they're going to consider this appeal. Meanwhile, he's stuck in a legal mud because he can't make another appeal on top of his appeal.
I don't, again,
At least my understanding in
this
that
isn't
state.
really, this isn't really about Nick, because
No, but it is
that,
about responsibility. I'm saying, is there justice for Dee Dee to that degree that
I think
warrants
justice
the,
for Dee Dee and justice for Nick are two different things, in my opinion.
without a doubt, but they are tied together.
But just so you know, and if you said that, you saw some of the interrogation with Nick, okay? So clearly Nick says in the interrogation video, when he talks about how he couldn't get erect, he said that because he felt guilt, he felt horrible about what happened to Dee Dee, because he found out later what a great mom she was. So after Gypsy right? Who else would have? I mean, he only spent time with Gypsy. So after Gypsy had him unalive her mom, or let him believe that he did that, she told him, and they were only caught 5 days later, right? She told him all these great things about her mom. None of them had to do with her being tied up or her being this or her being that. None of it had to do with that. You know, when when the woman was dead, she was a great mom. Now Gypsy's story is 10 times worse about her mom. She's doubled down about her mom. And she lives with the fact she has no problem. I'm a murderer. Okay, it was so 10 years ago. That's exactly her words. So she's an evil person. And I lose it when people find excuses or find reasons for why somebody could behave like that when there's just no proof but a bunch of words that were made up so that somebody could get away with murder. Are you awake?
Of course, I certainly don't want you to lose it, so therefore I wasn't going to say anything. I was happy to leave it at that. And honestly, I hope that because clearly she navigated and manipulated this, she's gotten away with murder, and 10 years is certainly, incarcerated. It's time, without a doubt, and it's painful time for anybody to have to go through 10 years. But to a young person, to then walk away scot-free and not have to be looked at. I remember
Well,
someone
she
he got
only did
jailed.
8.5 years. You know that she actually only did 8.5
She
years.
did. She got behavior right. I knew somebody back in New York who got involved with manslaughter, I want to say, and served at Napanock Correctional Facility. And years after, when he got out, for a bunch of years, easily 20, 25 years, he was reporting to someone once or twice a year. He was talking to somebody. And I don't know what the conditions of his release were, or I don't know how they worked it in New York, but that was a good thing he needed it because he went through this heavy duty Christian phase, and then
Well,
right after that he became complete atheist. But he was one of those cool stoner atheists. He was actually kind of manageable, and he had only one or two outbreaks if alcohol was in play, and alcohol always tears people up.
all right, so
And
I don't want to get this on there. I
but
don't want to get
I hope she's getting help to whatever
okay,
degree, and she
again,
is being
I want
looked
to
at.
end this. She's not getting help. She's not. So this
She's
just
not.
needs to
There's no
end.
third party looking at her. You're not looking at
There's
her.
nothing. There's nothing. She's fucking
So then, why
innocent.
don't
It's
we
so
put
10
together some
years
kind of
ago. Don't
coalition?
you understand that? What?
Why don't we look? Why don't we put together some type of coalition to look at her?
That's what we're doing as far as now the mainstream media is starting to look, so the narrative is starting to change now. That's what this whole thing is about. So now there's larger content creators that are re-looking at the story, which is going to cause national media to start changing the narrative, and hopefully they'll find another crime in what she has done, even if it's because if new evidence comes out. But this is just the beginning of this. This is just starting to turn. Guys, thank you so much for engaging in this episode of The Argument with Toddie1skip. I really appreciate all of you. Please like, subscribe, and share. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. And take care of yourselves. And don't forget, if you have anything that you need to stand on, make sure it's a good argument. Take care, guys.